I think clarity is a good thing in politics and life. I think transparency is a good thing in politics and life. All of us, when we go back to our states, our constituents are interested in what we support and what we stand for. The question of the police, do we support the police or oppose the police? That has become an important political question back home. The debate over abolishing the police is sadly and astonishingly to me a real debate in today's Democratic Party, because there are multiple elected Democrats who vocally embrace abolishing the police. It's not just at the local level. It's not just the mayor of New York City. It's not just the mayor of Minneapolis. It's not just the mayor of Portland that advocate abolishing the police. Sadly, it is now senior officials at the U.S. Department of Justice, the number 2 official at the Department of Justice, and the head of the Civil Rights Division at the Department of Justice. Both are among the leading advocates in the country for abolishing the police. Both, in writing, repeatedly and emphatically advocated for abolishing the police last year. 1 year ago, in writing, they advocated abolishing the police. Now, every Democratic member of this committee maintains, oh, no, I don't support abolishing the police. At the same time, every single Democrat in the United States Senate voted to confirm not 1, but 2 senior officials at the U.S. Department of Justice who are among the leading advocates of abolishing the police. And now we get a third time where, listen, our votes have consequences. By the way, I voted hell no on both of them because I think abolishing the police is insanity, and I'm emphatically against it. That's an easy vote, and I'm very comfortable telling the people of Texas why I cast that vote. Now we have the nomination of Ms. Rollins. I'll confess, a week ago I had no idea who Rachel Rollins was. I'd never heard of her, never encountered her. Then I looked at her record, and it takes your breath away. We're dealing with an individual nominated to be a U.S. attorney in Massachusetts who has been vocal and aggressive against prosecuting crime. Look, part of abolishing police is getting rid of the men and women in blue that keep us safe. Another part of abolishing police is telling prosecutors, you no longer prosecute crimes. We're not in the crime business anymore. In other words, we, the government, almost always, and in fact, I'll take out the almost always Democrats, say, given a choice between a violent criminal and an innocent citizen, we, the Democrats, choose the violent criminal. You may say, surely that is hyperbole. No one would be crazy for someone who meets that description to be the U.S. attorney. Well, let's look at her record. First of all, Ms. Rollins, in February, she was very candid that she came into the job of DA as a crusader. Here's what she said, quote, if you want to change the criminal legal system, become a prosecutor. Why? She explains why. Because you have, quote, the power to determine charges and what crimes to decline to prosecute. So that's what Ms. Rollins tells you matters about a prosecutor, the power to say, I won't prosecute these crimes. Well, surely she exercised it with reason and restraint. That's what our Democratic colleagues on this committee are suggesting. Well, let's look in writing, and I will say this document, it is entitled Appendix C, SCDAO, Declination and Diversion Policy. Boy, what an incredibly boring title designed to mask a horrific policy. I would encourage anyone, look, if you're watching this at home, and let's assume you have political leanings. You're a Republican, you're a Democrat. If you're a Republican, you're inclined to believe the Republicans on this. If you're a Democrat, you're inclined to believe the Democrats on this. Let me suggest something to you. Go read this document. I'll tweet out this document. Just read it. Read it yourself and then ask who's telling the truth. Because for all the Democrats saying, no, what do you mean she won't prosecute crimes? Let me read from the document she prepared. Charges on the list of 15 should be declined or dismissed pre-arraignment, so even before the proceedings start, without conditions. So we're not even going to put any conditions on it. No matter what, just throw it out. We don't want to see these cases. And in fact, the next sentence says the presumption is the charges that fall into this category should always be denied. Always. So no wiggle room of, just in some cases. Always is what she wrote, even when attached to another charge. So if you have a multiple criminal, we just throw out these crimes. Basically, this is the prosecutor saying, I'm the legislature. Those pesky elected legislators that actually voted on the criminal code, I don't care what they say. I am erasing these crimes from the criminal code. Okay, let's see. Listen, there's some dumb laws. You know, maybe what she's erasing, I'll tell you, in Texas, it is still, I believe, a crime. Senator Cornyn may be able to confirm it, to carry wire cutters in your pocket unless they protrude 3 inches or more. Now, that actually goes back to the days of cattle rustling. If you had a prosecutor who says, all right, we're not going to have an aggressive wire cutter in the pocket carrying prosecution unit, I'd be good with that. So maybe the categories of crimes that she says are no longer crimes in my jurisdiction, maybe they're that kind of thing, the stupid things. Well, let's start. What's the first one on the list? Trespass. Okay, I want everyone to think about this. And what's interesting is this is not just in red states. I want the people of Delaware to think about this. The people of Connecticut, the people of Hawaii, the people of California or Georgia. Do you want laws against trespass enforced in your community? Well, according to this individual that the Democrats want to make the top federal prosecutor of the state of Massachusetts, trespass is no longer against the law. Someone comes into your house, onto your property, no biggie, ain't a crime anymore. All right, what else isn't a crime? Shoplifting. You know, all of us have seen the videos, I think exclusively in Democratic cities, of shoplifters brazenly breaking into stores and stealing and stealing and stealing and running out. And why do they do it? They do it, for example, in San Francisco, because you have a prosecutor there who won't prosecute them. So you know what? Hey, I like stores where the price of everything is zero. That'd be a pretty amazing thing. Not very good for the stores, not very good for the community. But this prosecutor says there is no shoplifting. Now, if you want to steal a bunch of stuff, this is your person. If you're actually a small business owner, if you'd like to not have it open season on people breaking into your store and stealing everything in it, that might concern you. What else? Larceny. Larceny is not a crime. Remember, that she said these should always be declined to be prosecuted. Larceny is on the list. What else is on the list? Disorderly conduct disturbing the police. So let me ask you, and the amazing thing is, even in blue states, in Minnesota, I promise you there are a lot of moms that are not eager to discover that if someone is drunk and screaming and trespassing on their front lawn and urinating and defecating on their front lawn in front of their children and cursing at their kids, that, hey, according to the Democrats, not a crime, won't be prosecuted, and by the way, when that person comes back to your front lawn tomorrow and does it again, it's not a crime tomorrow either. Remember, always decline to prosecute it. So disorderly conduct is apparently not a crime. What else? Receiving stolen property. So it's good news. At least she's analytically complete. The shoplifters can steal everything in the store. They can take it to the fence, and the fence can then take everything in the store. If you believe that theft doesn't matter, that's a great idea. If you believe in actually enforcing the law, that's insane. What else is not a crime under the lawless administration of this supposed district attorney? Driving with a suspended license. Well, listen, that sounds pretty mild. I mean, a suspended license, that's a technical thing, right? What's the most common area typically where people lose their license? For driving drunk. Where do you get your license suspended? When you drive drunk. So if driving with a suspended license is not a crime, then apparently it is open season for people who have had their license suspended because they're repeat drunks because they endanger the safety of innocent people, of children. They get in a car and drive, they get pulled over, you don't have a license. Hey, no problem, keep on driving. Let us know when you kill someone when you're drunk next time. What else is not a crime, according to this radical? B&E, which all of us who watch Law & Order knows that stands for breaking and entering, into a vacant property to sleep or escape the cold. Okay, that sounds kind of reasonable. All right, a vacant lot, it's cold, you're going there. All right, that actually on the list, you can understand the reasoning. If it's cold, you're breaking into a vacant lot. It's vacant, there's not anyone there to be hurt. You can understand that one. And at least she has the good sense to say it's got to be vacant. because that way no innocent people will be hurt, right? Well, what's the next one on the list? B&E into a non-vacant property to sleep or escape the cold. Well, what's a non-vacant property? Like, I don't know, your home? So apparently what she's saying is if it's cold outside, it is no longer a crime for somebody to break into your home, so they can trespass on your property. They can break into your home, they can commit larceny, and apparently sleep in your living room. Now, I want each of you to imagine, look, there's an element of how would you answer one of your constituents if someone is doing this? And the answer from the prosecutor is, we will always dismiss the case. What else won't she prosecute? Wanton or malicious destruction of property. I don't know about you, but wanton and malicious are typically pretty bad. Ain't a crime under her. What else? You could say, well, at least none of these are violent, right? Well, breaking into a non-vacant property, that has the potential for violence. You know what else is not a crime? Threats. You can make a direct threat. You can threaten innocent people. You can threaten children. You can commit threats. Not a crime. What else is not a crime? Minor in possession of alcohol. Kids apparently drink like crazy, guys. Party when you got it. What else is not a crime? It's not just alcohol. Okay, you got kids with beer. All right, that's not the first time that's ever happened. Well, marijuana possession of marijuana paraphernalia. Okay, you've got some recreational pot. There's some jurisdictions that have legalized that. Understand that. Well, but it's just the users, right? It's the low-level guys. Nope. What's the next one they don't prosecute? Possession with intent to distribute. So if you're a drug dealer, get yourself to Massachusetts. You know, it used to be that you had to pay off a prosecutor and have a corrupt prosecutor on the payroll to get out of jail. Now you've got someone who's just openly saying, drug dealers, come to Massachusetts because we don't prosecute people for possession with intent to distribute. And by the way, you might say, well, it's just marijuana. There are a lot of places that say marijuana is not too bad. Well, what's the next one on the list? Non-marijuana drug possession. So, could be pot, could be, I haven't studied the details of that crime, but I'm assuming non-marijuana drug possession includes heroin, includes crack, includes cocaine, includes fentanyl, PCP, LSD, all of those. Hey, if you got kids, a lot of us on this committee have kids, I don't know, I would be kind of dismayed by a prosecutor who says if there's a drug dealer in my kid's school with a backpack full of fentanyl selling it to other kids, we're not going to prosecute him. But apparently the Democrats on this committee are not dismayed. And by the way, on the question of do you support cops or not, the last one on this list is really incredibly revealing. Resisting arrest. Police officer goes, confronts someone who's violent. They're violent. They engage with them. They resist arrest. What's the prosecutor say? Man, it really stinks to be you. I'm sorry you chose to be a cop. But it's open season. Apparently, resisting arrest is now the standard way of interacting with the police in Massachusetts. This is lunacy. And by the way, to make clear that her policy of not prosecuting anything is consistent with her advocacy of abolishing the police, here's what she said at an earlier public gathering. Rollins also spoke about the much-discussed concept of defunding the police. Okay, let's find out. Where is she on defunding the police? She said that defund is not the verb she would use. Okay, that's good. I'm sure every Democratic talking point is going to take that portion of the statement. She wouldn't use the verb defund, but rather reimagine. Okay, reimagine may be good, may be bad, hard to tell, or reallocate. Now, anyone who knows anything about defund means take the money out of, get away their funding. Reallocate means take the money away, get away their funding. And she explains, she elaborates on this. I think we're asking the police to do far too much. I think we can reimagine and reallocate some funding, take money away from the cops. Those are her views, and I'll give you To have a sense of just how extreme this nominee is, I want to point to Art Acevedo. Senator Cornyn knows Art Acevedo. He used to be the chief of police in Austin. He used to be the chief of police in Houston. He's now in Miami. Art is a Democrat. He is a partisan Democrat. Art is an ambitious partisan Democrat. He has his eyes on higher office. No one has ever missed that about Art. Art is now the president of the Major Cities Chiefs Association. I've had a lot of disagreements with Art Acevedo. Here's what liberal Democrat Art Acevedo says about Rachel Rollins. Quote, people like Ms. Rollins are, quote, going so far that we're putting the criminal and their interest in front of the victim's interest. So I started these remarks by saying transparency matters. I assume moments from now we're going to vote, and we're going to have a party line vote, and every Democrat just going to go ahead and vote for this candidate. You're not going to have listened to anything the Republicans have said, and then you're going to go tell your constituents, what do you mean? I don't support abolishing the police. Well, transparency matters. You now know her record. If you believe that we should actually prosecute crimes, if you believe that people shouldn't trespass on your property at home, shouldn't be able to break into your home, shouldn't be able to shoplift, shouldn't be able to resist arrest, shouldn't be able to commit threats, and have someone who is ostensibly the prosecutor immunize them and allow that conduct, then there's only one thing to do, which is vote. And let me say, I find it amusing we're having an argument about whether this is a roll call vote or not. I agree it should be a voice vote and we should unanimously reject this nominee. That would be, if we were in the land of reason, that's what we would do. But we're instead in partisan polarization, and so every Democrat will happily, like Pravda, vote aye, and then pretend you didn't. But facts are stubborn things, and anyone who reads this document knows exactly what kind of radical this prosecutor is. Well, I appreciate the sentiments of comedy and bipartisanship and the bipartisan lunch, but I want to take a minute and reflect on an aspect of how this committee is proceeding that has not reflected that spirit. The chairman is aware of my concerns and the concerns of a number of members of this committee that the way the Judiciary Committee has proceeded in the year 2021 has broken with past practice and broken with past norms on this committee, and has done so in a way that has been partisan and has undermined the important role of the Senate Judiciary Committee. As you know, back in March, when Vanita Gupta was before this committee, Chairman Durbin chose to break Rule 4 of the committee, which states that it takes a majority vote, including one vote from a member of the minority, in order to bring debate to a close. That had no precedent in the history of this committee. We then saw yet a second opportunity concerning Toby Heitens, nominated to be a judge in the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, where the total questioning for that lifetime nomination to the Court of Appeals was 18 minutes, even though my staff and the staff of another senator have both conveyed to the chairman that we were en route to the committee for the hearing. The chairman gavelled down that hearing after just 18 minutes of questions. And then sadly, we saw this pattern continue again just recently, just last week. Just last week, the committee held a hearing for Elizabeth Prelogar, the nominee to be Solicitor General of the United States. Solicitor General is one of the most important positions in any administration. Solicitor General is often referred to as the 10th Justice. And yet, the hearing this committee held for the nominee for Solicitor General allowed precisely 20 minutes of questioning. After the debacle of the nominee for the judge for the Fourth Circuit, Chairman Durbin told this committee that he intended to conduct things differently, to actually have some acknowledgement of comedy. 20 minutes for a Solicitor General nominee, and I would note That hearing was held not only at the same time as multiple other hearings of committees, and every member on this committee serves on multiple other committees, and so you have to be in multiple committee hearings at the same time. That committee hearing was also at the exact same time as a floor vote. So I had fully intended to come and question the nominee for Solicitor General. There were serious questions about the conduct of the Department of Justice in ongoing litigation that nominee is responsible for, and yet 20 minutes, and my staff conveyed to the chairman's staff that I was on the floor voting and intended to come back and raise questions. But before I could physically get back here, the chairman gavelled it down. And to put it in perspective, because I'm getting eye rolling from the chairman right now, this is wildly out of step with the precedent of this committee, and I'll give an example. In 2001, Ted Olson was the nominee to be Solicitor General of the United States. Ted Olson, the questioning for Ted Olson lasted 3 hours and 37 minutes. At the time, Senator Schumer and Senator Durbin both questioned for 15 minutes each. Senator Leahy questioned for nearly 20 minutes. And here's what Chairman Durbin said at the time after 3 hours and 37 minutes. I want to quote Chairman Durbin. "I do sincerely regret that we have two nominees today because 15 minutes is not enough for posts of this importance to be considered in tandem." Chairman Durbin was right 20 years ago. And this is now a pattern 3 times in a row of running roughshod over the rights of this committee to question nominees. And listen, I recognize there's a Democratic majority, the barest majority humanly possible, but there is one. But the conduct of Chairman Durbin is wildly out of step with the conduct of Chairman Leahy before him, with the conduct of Chairman Graham before him, with the conduct of Chairman Grassley before him. And there will come a time, particularly for the new members on this committee who have not yet had the opportunity to serve in the minority on this committee, there will come a time when the gavel is on the other hand. And so the fact that a Democratic chairman can ramrod through partisan proceedings 20 minutes objectively is grossly inadequate for a nominee for Solicitor General. And this committee has always had vigorous disagreements when it comes to questions of policy and law, but we have not seen chairmen playing games to protect partisan nominees, and I think that does real damage to the ability of this committee to function effectively.
The chair would respond. It is not within my power to determine how many senators attend this hearing and the length of their questioning. That is up to the individual senators to make the decision. If there's an important witness, they have ample opportunity to come and ask questions and even ask for a second round if it's appropriate. I can't control that, and I'm not going to set a timer and say, well, it'll be 1 hour for this witness and 2 hours for the next. The second point I want to make is somewhat personal, but I want to make it clear to every member of the committee. You raised this point once before, that you were, quote, on your way, and I closed down a hearing. I went up to you and right in that corner and stood and said, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that, it'll never happen again. Now let me tell you what happened. I know you had staff present, but let me tell you what happened when I heard in this last hearing that you might be coming. Senator Cotton finished questioning, and when he finished questioning, I was told you were, quote, on your way. And then I turned to your staffer, and I don't want to cause any problems there, and said, where is he? She said, I don't know, but I think he's on his way. We waited and still didn't hear. And at that point, I said to Senator Cotton, what do you think I should do at this point? On the record, he said, I don't want to comment on that. I really tried my best to give you an opportunity, but I think it is unreasonable for any member to say that the Senate Judiciary Committee and staff should wait indefinitely on the possibility that a member returns. When I left and went down the hallway, you were not on your way, at least not at that point. I'm going to do my best to leave the meetings of this committee open so that members have an opportunity, and I will, any good faith effort to get here, I'm going to try to honor. But you have to at least honor the members of the committee and staff by telling us where you are and when you're coming. Sitting here indefinitely waiting for the possibility is not fair to the rest of the committee.
So, Chairman Durbin, if I might respond to that.
Certainly.
I'll respond in 2 ways. Number one, with the nominee to the Fourth Circuit, when I arrived, and Senator Hawley also informed your staff that he was coming, both of us were in the elevators rushing to get here. When we got here, there were not one, there were two Democratic senators sitting in the anteroom, neither of whom had questioned, but were happily sitting in the anteroom and, in fact, were laughing. It has the appearance of simply game playing that the senators absented themselves to end the hearing. As it concerns the Solicitor General nominee.
Wait a minute.
The Solicitor General nominee, hold on, you can respond when I'm done responding.
Two members leaving the floor does not mean the committee is out of business. It's my decision with this gavel as to when it's out of business.
I understand,
did my best
but my
waiting for
point
you.
is that the Democrats were in the anteroom, they did not ask questions, and their absence is what gave the chairman the excuse to gavel down as well. There's no one here to ask questions because the Democrats were right outside the door. But secondly, the Solicitor General nominee was the second panel of the day. No senator can anticipate when the first panel is going to be over, so it's impossible to plan, I want to be there at X time, because the chairman scheduled the Solicitor General as the second panel of the day. And when the chairman has great umbrage, how could I know where you were? Well, it wasn't complicated. There's buzzing on the clock. I was standing on the floor of the Senate casting a vote, and I had to physically come from the floor of the Senate to here.
I asked your staff to tell me how long you would be, and
they said I was coming from a vote.
She said she didn't know, and I don't want to push her under the bus. That's
20
unfair.
minutes is
But
objectively unreasonable
It is unfair
for the Solicitor
for any
General
member to
nominee.
expect this committee to just stand in abeyance and wait for the possibility of your return.
Chairman Durbin, amazingly, every other committee chairman actually manages to have hearings where nominees have appropriate time for questioning. It is only the Judiciary Committee that I have seen this kind of gamesmanship, and it is only in the last 9 months. 8 years on this committee, neither Chairman Leahy nor the Republican chairman played these kinds of games. It has only been during Chairman Durbin's tenure that has happened on this committee. And by the way, if you want to go back to past nominees for Solicitor General, you can see there's consistently over an hour for the hearing for Noel Francisco, an hour and 56 minutes for Don Verrilli, an hour and 34 minutes for Elena Kagan. There is a long history of this committee questioning nominees for the Solicitor General position. And I understand, Chairman Durbin, that Democrats want to protect Democratic nominees, but giving short shrift to the Senate's responsibility to advise and consent is undermining the ability of this committee to do its job, particularly when the chairman knows fully well on a day that there are votes in multiple committee hearings that it takes time for members to physically get here. And that is true of every member here, which is why other committee chairmen manage to hold hearings open for sufficient time to actually question nominees.